It's a pleasure today to welcome into the studio someone who I've been a fan of his work over the years, but also someone as I count as a friend, an award-winning documentary maker, journalist, author, and having just written his latest book, Courageous Woman, welcoming to the Star Studio, Rob Harley.
Hi, Lizzie. Lovely to be here.
Good to see you. This is kind of funny, isn't it? Because you and I have known each other over the years. Do you remember there was a time you were actually my pastor? We did some worship music and things together.
I did. You played a pretty mean sax, as I recall.
Oh, gosh, yeah, the saxophone. That was in the days of the saxophone. And like a lot of people who work in media, you helped me out there at one stage, gave me a great leg up, and I'm not sure I'd be where I am today because of that, so thank you.
Well, I think you bought me a nice lemon slice to say thank you, so it was a reciprocal arrangement. It was good.
It was very good. I appreciate that. So I was just reflecting, you've written so many books, and I think I've got a few of them on my bookshelf at home. Was it Brave, Mad and Memorable? That was one of the ones. And all the stories and the TV shows that you were on over the years. You have met some really extraordinary people, haven't you?
I have. I said at the intro to my first book, Brave, Mad and Memorable, journalists are a privileged bunch. We get to meet people usually at a crossroads in their life. We meet them when they're often at a quitting point, deciding whether to go on. We meet them when they are making the hugest decisions possible. We also meet them at moments of great joy, and to be witness to that is very humbling.
Yeah. Now, your latest book, Courageous Woman.
The Courage of Women.
The Courage of Women. Beg your pardon. Get that right. The Courage of Woman, a bunch of incredible Wahine Toas that you've met. Was it hard to sort of select the stories?
Kind of it was. There's about 3 of them that I wasn't able to do in the end. One for legal reasons, one because she's shy and didn't want the story told again, and one because she wants to write her own book.
Oh,
so
fair enough.
I whittled it down from 13 to 10. I have told stories about other courageous women in books that I've written, women who've immensely impressed me and impacted my life, but this was one that I'd been gagging to tell from 50 years of scribbling.
Wow.
One of the very first story goes back to 1989, 1990, story of a Māori wahine, a kuia from Ngāti who was dying of lung cancer, and my director colleague and I wanted to highlight what smoking was doing to Māori women. They are the worst affected in the world by tobacco-related illness. And Helen Clark at that time was pushing through legislation to try and get Kiwis off smokes. So we wove those 2 stories together, and we wrote a story called July's Legacy. Her daughter Hiria has grown up to be an incredible young wahine. She's going to be at one of the launches, and maybe a couple of them, I hope. And it's just been such a privilege to tell stories that you hope in your own little way have gone into a niche somewhere and maybe affected somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely read that very first story, July's Legacy. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Thank you. And I mean, reading it, I was like, oh my goodness, the breadth and the depth of your storytelling. You want it to come out more than once in life, right? You go back and revisit. But also, I mean, that was a piece of history, all that went on within that chapter.
Yeah, MPs got up in Parliament when the legislation was being debated, the Smoke Free Environments Act, and they were quoting from the documentary. This was back in the pre-digital days. You know, nowadays viewing audiences are small, but 750,000 people watched that program. And 10 years later, we revisited it, and Marae had become smoke-free all over the country, education programs to get girls off smokes. Because at the time we did our first story, 75% of Māori women between 15 and 35 were smokers. Horrendous figures.
Yeah, that's huge. Tell us about some of the other stories that are within the book. Touch on them.
It's hard to pick a favourite, but the second story in the book is called Broken Promises, Broken Brides, which came about 30 years ago when some women were at Auckland Airport trying to stop a desperately sick Malaysian woman from being deported back to Kuala Lumpur. Nobody quite knows why she was deported. She had been in a New Zealand hospital, but she'd been very badly mistreated by her New Zealand husband and force-fed methadone. I went to Kuala Lumpur with a camera and I managed to get pictures of her 5 hours before she passed away. That led me on a quest many years later with an aid organisation, a women's aid and refuge organisation called Shakti. Brilliant, brilliant women who take in battered, beaten, assaulted, homeless young Asian women. And we found it was a phenomenon that nobody knew about. One of my business partners went to India to investigate it because a woman from West Auckland had been lured back there and shot 3 times in a town called Varanasi. It was an attempted murder. So it was serious business, and we told that story, and I've remained friends with those women ever since. The final story in the book will need tissues when you read it. A young colleague of mine, Anna Makessa, a brilliant young woman director who I employed when she was 22, a new communications graduate. And she learned of a story that I'd been working on for a corporate job about a young Chilean woman aged 21 in Lower Hutt who was going to give birth to a baby that she knew wasn't going to live more than a day.
Wow.
Everybody urged her to terminate, and she said, I want to hold this baby. I want to baptize it. I want to breastfeed it. I want to hand this baby around my relatives because I know it's going to bond us. And it did. And he lived for 5 hours, and the story's called 5 Hours with Raja. It's been shown around the world. Anna was awarded Best Emerging Documentary Maker. She got first-class honours in her Masters in Communication by using that story, and I'm so proud of her and others like her that I've worked with.
Yeah, that is just phenomenal. So how many stories within the book?
10 stories, and some of them are about one woman. Some of them are about a group of women together. Some of them are about 2. There's a story called The 2 Sues, which is 2 women I know, both from Tiamutu. 2 Sues from Tiamutu. How about that? And they both just went to Cambodia and said, we've got to stop child trafficking and the sex trade, pedophiles. We've got to stop it. They both sat with dying young women and said, this is going to define the rest of our lives, and it has. They've taken young abused kids to America to testify against pedophiles under international law. One guy got locked up for 210 years.
Wow.
And they're changing a country. You know, what a privilege to have been in the company of women like that.
Definitely. Now, speaking of company, you're going to be having a bunch of book launches that people can come along to around the country. Tell us about that, Rob.
We're kicking off in Christchurch on the 16th of October, 7 p.m. I'm doing them all in churches because churches give you good rates for book launches. And several of the stories are about faith, very nakedly about faith.
Yeah.
Oxford Terrace Baptist Church, 16th of October in Christchurch, 7 o'clock. Auckland, Windsor Park Centre the next night, 17th. Where are we going next? We're going to Tauranga, 24th of October. It'll all be on my website. You can read about it. And then a final launch in Wellington on the 1st of November. I've managed to persuade some pretty smart women of mana to come along and be the MCs. Helen Clark has written the foreword, so she's given it her thumbs up. So it's the book I've written that I'm most pleased with.
Oh, that's wonderful. So to find out about the book launch, but also where to purchase the book, we head to your website. Is that the best place to go, Rob?
Very simple, robharley.co.nz. On there I am otherwise known as the South Head Vagabond. I've reinvented myself now that I live out in the glorious South Kaipara. And there's a lovely picture of me sitting on my favourite motorbike, which I do not own anymore, by the way. But it tells stories. There's podcasts on there, there's blogs, there's inspirational stuff, and you can find out about this book, The Courage of Women.
Great. robharley.co.nz. Rob, thanks for your time today.
My pleasure.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you can catch all our interviews on Star. See you next time.